All right, beginners, we are moving on to history and we're learning about the Reformation because every October 31st we celebrate the Reformation. All right, and it started long ago with a man named Martin Luther who joined to become a monk and lived in a monastery. Actually, let's go ahead and learn about this in a monastery. Come with me. Wow, look at these walls. It's kind of cold in here actually. This is what a monastery would look like. All right, this is where Martin Luther lived. He was a monk. Now, do you remember where else we learned or heard the word monk and monastery before? That's right, in our literature book. Remember when Columbus had nowhere to go? Him and his son had no place to live and the monks welcomed them with open arms. So, if you look in your little book, you will actually see a picture of Martin Luther. Now, Martin Luther was a very smart man, all right? And his father wanted him to study law, but he felt this emptiness in his heart and he wasn't happy. He was actually very unhappy. So that's when he decided to stop studying law and that's when he became a monk. All right, back then, monks typically had no hair on the top of their head, but they had like a crown of hair, kind of funny looking. All right, and also they wore long brown cloaks, probably because it was pretty cold like in here. Okay, so a monk lived here with other monks and they worshiped God. Actually, if you listen, you can kind of hear them. Do you guys hear them? Yeah, those are monks singing, all right? So monks worshiped God. They helped people, like they helped Christopher Columbus, all right? They'd help people that needed help. They take care of this, abbey is another name for this monastery, all right? So they had different chores that they would accomplish every day. Now, at the same time of Martin Luther, the church wasn't doing what they were supposed to do. You see, back then, not anymore, but back then a long time ago, in the time of Martin Luther, the church was wanting to make money. So to do that, they would make a little card called an indulgent, just like this one right here. Okay, see that little card? All right, they'd make little papers saying indulgences, and they said, if you sinned and you want to go to heaven, you have to buy a card so God can forgive you. And the people believed them. And so people would buy all these cards because they sinned and they wanted to go where they wanted to go to heaven. And then later they made a new rule, if maybe your fish pet died and you wanted them to go to heaven, you can buy a card and then your fish pet will go to heaven. And guess what? The people believed them. And so the church was making a whole bunch of money selling these indulgences. And people were losing their money to the church believing what? A lie. Now, is that true? Do we need a card for God to forgive us? No, we can go and we can pray for God to forgive us, and He'll what? He'll forgive us because we have a loving God, a truthful God, all right? And if we want to go to heaven, do we have to spend money to go to heaven? No, we ask God into our hearts and He allows us to go to heaven with Him. So see, they would get the word of God and they would change it around and they distort it. And so the church was not doing what the church was supposed to do back then. And Martin Luther saw that. Now remember, Martin Luther was a man of law. He was studying to what? Be a lawyer. He was studying law. So when he saw this, that the church was doing that, do you think that made him happy? No, he was probably very sad. And that made him kind of angry. So what he did is he worked day and night. And if you look right here, we have a feather pen. All right, because back then they would get their pen, which is a feather, like that one right there. You should have a feather pen in a bag. All right, and it's kind of pointed because they dip it in ink and they write, and they dip it in ink and write. And so he stayed up day and night determined to write all the things that the church was doing that was not true. So what he did, he wrote 95 things. Can you say 95? That's not 1, that's not 2, that's not 10, that's not 50, that's 95 things he wrote down that the church was doing wrong. Can you see all this whole list of things? That's a lot of things. This is a huge paper. All right, he wrote all these things, and when he was done, he got it and he nailed it onto the door of the church, and the church was in a town. So the people went shopping for their things, and then they stopped and they thought, oh, what's this big old list of things? Who is it from? Martin Luther. Let's see what he's wrote. And they got to see for themselves that what the church was doing was not right. And ever since then, people stopped buying what? They stopped buying indulgences. And instead of going to the church to ask God for forgiveness, they went who? They asked directly God to God and asked God for forgiveness. It's because of Martin Luther that we have the 95 Theses. All right, isn't that incredible? Isn't that great that he did that? Because he could have what? He could have been like, oh, the church is not doing what they're supposed to do, but it's okay. I'll just keep living a good life and not worry about them. No, he did what God had called him to do because he had something in his heart, and he went and he did it, and out of that we have this. And now do we pay indulgences? No, we don't. All right, so every October 31st, normally people celebrate Halloween, but that's the day that we celebrate the Reformation because of God, that he used Martin Luther to reform the church, move it around and change it to be what? A church that serves God. All right, so now let's go ahead and work on our packets together and learn a little bit more about some Reformation things. Come on. All right, so as we move on to our book, make sure you write your name right here at the bottom of your Reformation book. And before we open it up, we have a really pretty picture here. I already colored mine in, so you can go ahead and color yours in when you're free. Right here we have a picture of a door. Right here we have Martin Luther's rose, and if you forget what it looks like, you'll have a little paper in a little bit, but it looks like this. Make sure you color in with yellow and blue, and then you have the red heart. All right, back then they would drink out of old chalices, some bread, he would read from his Bible, and then right over here, I colored this in very bright and vibrant to really go with the stained glass that you would see in a lot of churches back then. I'll post a couple pictures right here. All right, so as you can see, make sure you color this area very bright to really represent the stained glass that they had. And when we come back to school, we won't be working with glass, but we will probably do a couple projects with some stained glass pictures for art. All right, I'm really excited, and let's go ahead and open up the rest of our book and look together. We're gonna skip this page just for right now, and we're gonna turn all the way to the page that looks just like this. We have a picture of Martin Luther at the left corner, and it says Martin Luther, born November 10th, 1483. He died February 18th, 1549. His nationality is German. All right, so this right here is really done for you. Make sure you grab a pencil and trace over it nice and slowly. For the bottom, we're gonna go ahead and write, well, let's actually read the question first. It says, what is he famous for? Do you guys remember what? For nailing what? The 95 Theses. So we're gonna write this. On October 31st, 1517, Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses on the door of the church. All right, so make sure to take your time, go nice and slowly. Once you're done there, we're gonna go ahead and move on back over here. At the very top, it says Germany. And what is he? He's German, so he lived in Germany. And if we look very closely at the places around Germany, we have Poland, the Netherlands, all right? Right here, where it kind of goes in a little bit, we have France. This is where Miss Sarah is from. So if Germany is next to France, is it right next to us in America? No, it's all the way on the other side. We'd have to take what? An airplane or a boat to get there. So what you're gonna do here is color in your best. All right, go nice and slowly. We're gonna color this all green. Once you're done coloring this little area green, and only Germany green, we're gonna go ahead and move on to this side right here. Now for this, you're gonna need a glue stick. And you should have gotten a little bag with a whole bunch of little papers. We can go ahead and empty those out. All right, the first thing you can grab is this feather. Now this one has gold because this one's a little bit fancy. But what I've done is I cut the tip of this feather so now it's a little bit pointy, all right? Don't hurt yourself. And the reason I cut it at a tip is because back then, do you think Martin Luther wrote the 95 Thesis with a pen? No, he didn't. He actually used a feather back then. They used a feather back then to write with. They'd have a little tray with ink and they'd dip their pen in there and then they'd write. All right, and then they dip their pen in there some more and they'd write some more. So that's why your feather is curved like this. I even got a marker and I colored the tip black to represent the ink that they would use to write with. All right, so we can set that aside right here. All right, so next you can go and look for a paper that looks like this. Now this is Martin Luther's Rose, all right? And we are actually gonna learn about this tomorrow, so we can set it up right here at the corner. And then we can get the next paper that looks like this. Now this has a whole bunch of little lines. And the reason it has all these little lines is if you look closely, it's in a different language, but also this is Martin Luther's 95 Thesis that he wrote out. So we're gonna go ahead and place this right here at the bottom. And what did he use to stick this to the church door? He used a hammer, all right? We can place the hammer right over here. Next, we have these right here. Now remember I showed you these in the video. Do you remember what they're called? It had a funny name. Indulgences. Remember the church was saying if you want to go to heaven, you have to have what? One of these papers. And was that true? No, it was not true at all. So you should have two. We can go ahead and put them like this. One kind of on top of the other. And last but not least, I decided to throw this in there because we are not having a Reformation party this year due to COVID. So, it's just a little bag. And inside is lavender. And if you can smell it, it smells very, very good. Back then, times were very different and things smelled very stinky, believe it or not. So they would get lavender, a flower just like this, or maybe different flowers, and they'd put it maybe in their sock drawer, they'd put it maybe in their pocket, they'd wrap it in their handkerchief, so if they had to cover their mouth, they can smell it, and it smelled very good. All right, so I gave you also two little clips like this. You can go ahead and clip it to the top of your page, just like that. And there's another one just in case you need it to be very secure. Alrighty, so now that we have this kind of laid out, we're gonna go ahead and glue it where it's at. So let's go ahead and begin to glue it together. Once you get to your indulgences right here, I'm going to show you how to glue them because they're a little bit tricky. Let's start with the first one. Make sure I put enough glue on there, not too much, but just enough. All right, and we're going to glue this one down right here in between the rose and the 95 Thesis. And for the next one, we're only going to put glue on one side. We're only going to put glue on this side right here. So let's get our paper. It looks like this. Let's actually just fold it right here, and that's where we're gonna put glue on. All right, and we're gonna put it like this. We're not gonna put it straight, or you can, I guess, if you like. I'm gonna put mine a little crooked, just like this, so you can see that there's two indulgences. And last but not least, our feather. Now the feather might be a little tricky to glue on. Just try your best. You may have to put quite a bit of glue. excellent job, just like this right here. Perfect. So now what? We have our Martin Luther Rose, our indulgences to remind us what the church was doing. We have our 95 Thesis of what Martin Luther nailed onto the church door. We have the pen, the feather pen that he would use to write the 95 Thesis. And then just to be a little extra, we have this little bag of this nice smelling lavender, something that they would probably use back then. All right, so that is our first page done. All right, and then you should have your Germany colored in green. Then we have Martin Luther that says, God is my rock, and our Martin Luther page. All right, that is it for today. I hope you guys had fun.